This podcast is brought to you by Place Pros, commercial and investment real estate, and NicoTour.boutique, your one-stop shop for everything cool. All right, we're here with Steve Keller from WFIT, Keller Radio.
Sure, yeah.
Do you have a radio voice that you put on? And if so, let's get a little sample of that.
It's funny because I do a lot of promotion for it.
Yeah.
So I do these little Facebook videos, and I can tell it's coming back. I did radio 30 years ago in college.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I graduated, it was pretty much, okay, well, that's done. So I had an opportunity last November to start up again. And I'd like to think I don't, but
you do.
There's phrasing, involved.
Yeah. Pacing.
The tagline, exactly. The tagline is indie rock, deep cuts, and plenty of Space Coast original music. So when I do my little promos in the confines of a minute, I find myself kind of jazzing it up. So to answer your question, yeah, I guess I do have somewhat of a radio voice.
I like that. I think everybody has like a little bit of them who just is fascinated by radio hosts. And
it's been fun, I was in my 20s back then, and now I'm in my 50s. So there's a lot of...
You still have a youthful look about you.
Thank you. Still dressed like I'm 20.
Yeah, well, you got to.
But it's one of those things that I enjoy with the radio and just a bunch of whatever else I do. I try to bring some coolness to an audience.
Absolutely. So you studied production at State University of New York.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you had your radio show?
It is actually, yeah. It's still there. It's the oldest radio station in the SUNY system outside of Buffalo.
Cool.
And you don't know what you had until you go elsewhere. And at 19, I was a program director. I became a general manager and was in charge of 350 people. So, that gave me a lot of responsibility, a lot of...
At 19?
Yeah, public speaking experience, a lot of confidence. Sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
What else happened during your college years?
Did a lot of interviews.
Yeah.
Which we're bringing back on the Keller Radio show as well.
Any notable?
James Brown comes to mind. That was really cool. I got to do press for festivals. We had Lollapalooza access and stuff like that. So again, being a young kid and just given opportunities to succeed or to fail, became friends with the Goo Goo Dolls. So that was one of the cool things. They came to our school and played a couple of times.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you realize you were you had a really cool gig back then, or was it kind of just normal?
I knew that it would end.
Yeah.
So I just enjoyed it that much more. I was a radio major, and pretty much by sophomore year realized that I wasn't going to pursue it.
Why?
Communications and even radio today is all about your voice. It's really not anything about your creativity. You're reading script.
So did you crave the creativity and knew you were
Yeah,
not
well, I
have
knew I had the opportunity there to do so, which I wouldn't necessarily have in pro radio. So because of that revelation early, I had a ball. I had a blast.
Cool. What were your classes like? Production classes?
Yeah, production back then was reel-to-reel tape.
Yes.
And cutting and splicing. So now that I'm back in radio now, 30 years later, it's all digital.
Do you find it easier?
I'm scared to death of it. I'm still not, because I work a day job, so I don't get to be around it as much as I did in college.
So there's like a learning curve for you.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, the radio station now is literally a mouse and some screens.
Yeah.
And then uploading songs as opposed to, queuing up records and
there's
stuff
nothing
like
tangible anymore. There's just
no.
button clicks.
Yeah. But by the same token, we're able to do it online all over the world. My mom lives in Buffalo. My dad lives in Dallas. My sister-in-law lives in the country of Chile. So when it's live, it's
they could all hear
all
it
around the world. So that's definitely a cool trade-off.
Yeah. So what did you end up graduating with?
I graduated with a bachelor's in radio communication, minor in journalism.
Okay.
And promptly didn't use it for all these years. To a certain extent, I've always done music journalism. I started writing for Brevard Live magazine when I got here.
Yes. And what brought you here?
My ex-wife, Her dad was stationed at Patrick. So
Okay.
that's the shortcut to it.
Yeah. Okay. So because you came in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then you formed your band, Best Supporting Actor.
I did.
I listened to your Dex music video.
Yeah.
I loved
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
But it was so fun. Who did the animation for that?
Mr. E, who's been my collaborator and a great artist on his own right.
Yeah.
When he commits to a project, he just does it. And one day he was like, I want to make a music video for you guys. And a week later, there it was.
A week?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys need to watch it.
Thank you.
It's a great sound, and then on top of having that animation, it's super fun. How many songs do you guys have under your belt?
We've been a band this July, just this July, it'll be 17 years.
Wow. So
we probably have maybe 35, 40 songs. We've always been an original band. We don't do any covers.
great.
So that was very important to us.
Do you guys record? Do you have albums?
We have an EP that we did many, many years ago. We did a split album with another band called the Trash City Rockers.
What's the difference between an EP and an album?
So back in the old days, a long player, an LP, would be usually around 10 to 12 songs. An EP, which they call it extended play for some reason, that's usually around 5 to 6 songs.
Okay, got it.
But even in this day and age, it's easier for bands just to record and release a single.
Right.
So there really is no albums anymore.
Right.
Very rarely. And we, as much as I'm involved in the scene and try to promote everybody else's stuff,
Yeah.
Best Supporting Actor, myself specifically, we really haven't jumped on that.
Why not?
We're busy with other things. That's usually been the success of the band is that, and I say this with love, we don't hang out. We all have our own lives. We all have our own projects. We all have our own day jobs, which
So
I'm sure
how
ideally
often-
would be,
How often do you guys come together and perform?
probably 5 or 6 times a year.
Okay.
I don't
That's
know
a
when
good
this
amount.
airs, but we're playing on March 9th. Best Supporting Actor is the name of the band. We do these multi-band, multi-genre shows called Best Fest.
Okay.
So we have different bands that don't sound like us on the bill with us to kind of draw a bigger audience. And pretty early on, instead of, making a couple of bucks per band, we just pick a charity and we donate the money that we raise
Oh, wow.
to the charity. So this time around, it's the Women's Center.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What other charities have you guys? Do you guys just pick a new one every time, or do you have a?
There's some that we, there's To Write Love on Our Arms, which I'm very
Yeah.
passionate about. Good friends with Jamie
Yeah.
and the crew over there. What else have we done? It varies.
It varies.
It's topical as well. I mean, we're playing in March, which is Women's History Month. So
Do you
That's
have
where the
a
Women's
next
Center-
date planned after that?
no.
Okay. Who are your band members?
So Katie Moist is our. Well, here's an exclusive for you, I guess. So when I started the band with Wade Vargo, 17 years ago, we had a lot of different bass players.
Okay.
Katie Moist joined on bass and backup vocals years ago. And then with the pandemic, it kind of took a hiatus, or Katie left the band for a while. But it's always been me and Wade, with me singing and me playing drums.
Oh,
So
wow.
health issues and so forth, and Katie's a drummer by trade. So this show on the 9th will be our first show where Katie will be playing drums, and I'll just be the front man.
Cool.
The David Lee Roth, for those people that remember that guy.
How would you describe your music? Because to me, it was
Yeah.
it was very nostalgic of the music that I listened to when I was growing up.
Yeah, I hear that. We're not punk rock.
Right.
We're rock punk.
Yes.
Is kind of how I describe it,
That's
because we're
what I would-
fast.
Yeah.
That song is pretty funny because most of our songs and the lyrics are very personal to me.
Yeah. It sounds
That
like
one
it.
is about Dexter, the TV show.
Okay.
So it's it's a great show, and it's a favorite of mine, but it's not a personal story. I'm not a serial killer.
Because
for
yeah,
those
it talks
people that
about
were
pain,
wondering.
right?
Yeah, I mean, it talks about it's about Dex. It's about Dexter killing people with no conscience.
Yeah.
So, and then the video is actually some kind of video game. Sorry, Mike, I don't know what video game it is.
Yeah, it looks like a hybrid of like a video game, and for some reason it reminded me of He-Man a little bit.
Yeah. Which is just another interpretation, which is cool because, again, if left to our own devices, we would have not done a music video. So it's cool that there was one person's interpretation that's kind of representing the song.
So you guys didn't have any creative input. You just let him do his thing.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Have you done any other music videos?
He's done a video for us. Again, it's video game centric, and it's for a song "Stupid White People."
What other songs should we listen to? Like, tell us some, because
Well, again, I mean, we've done more recording to think about it. There's a song, and I always blank on the song titles.
Oh, okay.
But just come see us. Again, we're an all original band. We don't fall into those bands that do a lot of covers and have one original,
right,
and say that they're an original band. We decided a long time ago that this is what we do. And as a singer, I wouldn't even try to cover songs.
Yeah.
My theory is if it's an original song, then no one can tell me I'm singing it wrong.
Right. I mean, I need to dive more deeply into that, but I really enjoyed Deck, so I think that I'll enjoy them all. And we can find those on YouTube?
Yeah, they're on YouTube.
Okay. Is there a channel or?
Came up with a channel. I started a podcast, actually with Mr. E as well.
Oh, yeah?
Called Serial Keller.
Okay.
And that was really to promote the Space Coast Music Festival a couple years ago. We did about 5 episodes a season with different musicians. It resides on YouTube and probably could have been a lot bigger if I didn't have so many projects going on.
So what do you do during the day? What's your day job?
Sure. I work at a local fence and gate company.
Oh, okay.
Doing accounting.
Okay. Cool.
Yep.
So yeah, that's totally unrelated to the music scene.
Yeah, I mean, I've never wanted to be a starving artist, right? I never wanted to be that kid that was working at a convenience store because his band was going to break at any minute. Right. I've always had some solid jobs to pay the bills so that we could do this, on the nights and weekends.
And I could tell you're so passionate about it. And I feel like I don't know enough about the Melbourne music scene to, I don't know. So like, you're going to have to educate me as we go. But before we get there, you told me you had a heart attack at 2010.
I did.
How did that come about? And how are you doing now?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
I had one in 2010, actually, right after a gig.
Really?
Yeah. As the story goes, and for those people that know me, they hear this story all the time. We were playing in Cocoa Village.
Okay.
There were 3 bands in the early show and 3 bands in the late show. Mm-hmm. We were the first band of the late show. So we were set to play for an hour, but they were running behind schedule, so they cut our set to 30 minutes, but they didn't tell us. Oh. So legit, right after a song, they're like, all right, everybody, give it up for Best Supporting Actor. Yay. And I don't get angry often, but I was really more confused.
Yeah.
So we got all of our stuff off the stage. It was kind of like, what's going on? And in the whole chaos of that, it felt like I got hit by a sledgehammer in the back.
In the back?
Yeah, like you need to crack your back, but you can't. And I just chalked it up. Again, we just got done playing. I chalked it up to maybe I didn't stretch enough before we were going to play. And then my left arm went numb.
That's the clue?
Not at that point. I think my brain really took over and said, okay, something's going on, but you just pulled a muscle. That was my thinking. Right. Obviously it wasn't. My girlfriend at the time had baby aspirin in her purse. Her son has heart issues. So I took baby aspirin, and it just got progressively worse. We went outside. It was in November, and I started sweating profusely, and the light started like swaying. So we got on an ambulance, Luckily, Wusthof in Rockledge was literally 2 miles down the road.
Oh, yeah.
And, I had a blood clot in my main artery, what they refer to as a widowmaker. And I'm here to talk about it. But I had to have a pacemaker installed in 2011 because part of my heart muscle died that night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you get a new artery? I know sometimes they put like pig valves in.
No, I have a stent from that and a pacemaker. I actually had a second heart attack in 2021.
Oh my gosh.
And had 2 more stents put in. So, yeah, I mean, the decision to just sing in Best Supporting Actor, in addition to Katie's talent, obviously Katie's a great drummer, but it was also, okay, maybe at age 50 I don't go from 0 to 90 in 4 seconds like we used to.
Oh, that's an incredible story of recovery.
Yeah.
How else has it impacted you, like, besides not being able to go full force with music?
It's weird because when I got the pacemaker put in, and I think some of it was denial.
Yeah.
You feel kind of invincible because they basically tell you, okay, if anything happens, this thing is gonna help. It's your safety net. That's not the case, and nor should it be.
Right. Right.
In 2021, when I had the heart attack, it never did anything.
What is it supposed to do?
It's supposed to, if you're going too low, it's
Yeah.
supposed to shock you, like on those
so you,
medical
like,
dramas where it
feel
goes
it?
clear. You're supposed to. It's never gone off for me.
Yeah.
So I'm happy about that. So if it's too low, it'll spark you. If it's too high and that's come close playing, right? It'll shock you back down to a healthy rhythm. So, yeah, knock on wood, I've never had to use it. But again, I'm getting up there in age, and healthier habits would be best. Probably.
Are you exercising? Are you eating better than you were?
I do.
Yeah.
I can't say I do currently, right? I'm kind of above, and I did in January, Do Right Love on Our Arms had a 24-mile challenge.
Oh, wow.
So I walked a total of 24. I say 24. It's not all together, or not all at once.
Yeah.
But over the course of January, I walked 24 miles.
That's
so
wonderful.
I've had my moments that need to be more moments as I get older.
Yeah, it's difficult though to write that into your habits.
Well, in 2021, we were all home. I was working at home.
Yeah.
I didn't know where my house ended and my job began, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So it was a very
had that.
bad time in that, and
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. But I hope you keep going.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need you. So you joined Brevard Live in May. We have an issue here. Tell me about your writing experience for that.
Well, I wrote on and off in high school. Was always reading magazines.
Yeah.
My friends in high school would call me the Barbara Walters of rock because I would always have these weird little factoids about bands and such. It actually goes back to Mr. E as well. We had started to do a fanzine called Underground Juice, and we got one episode out before I had my heart attack in 2010. So it was a very big project. Took a lot of time, a lot of money. I was out medically. So he suggested including it, or at least pitching it, to Heike Clark, who's the owner and editor of Brevard Live magazine. That basically, in a very short time frame, turned into me writing for Brevard Live. It was something I still do.
Yeah. So you get to meet a lot of bands and talk to them, or
Yeah.
are you just fishing out information?
It's both.
It's both.
It depends. The magazine's been around for almost 35 years now.
Wow.
It's definitely a mirror of what is going on in the scene.
Yeah.
Who's coming to the King Center, who's coming to the fair. So there's a lot of well-known artists. Heike has been great over the years to allow me to give press to the local scene.
Yeah.
So, I do the bigger interviews when needed or when asked, but my focus has always been the bands, the artists, the kids that are in a garage band that their parents say that it's never going to go anywhere. This is something tangible where they can cut it out and put it on their refrigerator.
Absolutely. So who are your favorite big name bands? Let's start there.
Wow. I was just listening to them in the car. There's a band from Canada called the Tragically Hip. Unfortunately, the singer died in 2017, but I was able to see them a bunch of times. And just no show is exactly the same. The singer was always, going into stories mid-song and just being kind of out there. So that's a huge influence. The Goo Goo Dolls, as I mentioned.
Are you still friends with them?
Yeah. Not as, they're all over the world. They're in Australia right now, so don't get to see them or talk to them in many years. But it was a cool feeling to know basically that you can hang, right?
Yeah.
And the people that live here as well. Actually, I'll share this story. Pat Botts is the drummer for the band Three Dog Night, and he lives here. Him and Lori are moving back, and pretty early on in the Brevard Live career, I got to talk to him, and he gave me one of the nicest compliments I've ever gotten, because he sent me an email with some information we needed, and he basically said, "You get it." Right? So I try to pass that along with whoever I'm talking to, whether it's, he's been in the band for 30 years until his retirement recently, or if it's a brand new band starting out. You're the peers, you're the colleagues, it's not necessarily rock star garage band.
Yeah.
And I think if you have that mentality from the get-go, or if you're given that respect from the get-go, it'll help you out throughout however long bands do this.
So you get it. When you're conducting an interview, what is it that you're trying to fish out?
I've often thought of myself as a storyteller, right? You've got an album coming out. You've got the video for a song. You're playing this band or this show next. Just tell me, and then I'll relay that to the audience, whether it's in print, whether it's on radio. Without having to be starstruck, without having to be, flashy about it. You peel the layers back, and we're all, just trying to get our creativity out.
So it's not necessarily about digging for exclusive information. It's just like putting out the information, the just solid. They're going to be here at this time. Their album comes out at this moment.
Yeah, I mean it's conversational by all means. I did a column in Brevard Live for years called Local Lowdown, which was more of that. Hey, we're going to talk about 15 bands in this column, so we can't give a lot of press, a lot of space to them, but what's the who, what, where, and why.
Okay.
The interviews that we're able to do on the radio now are a little bit more of a deep dive.
Yes.
But, I'm not going to necessarily ask, their thoughts on God necessarily. It's what their focus is of what they want to bring out there.
Do you have any interest to ask the deeper questions? Or
not in that medium?
No.
Not really. I mean, unless they bring it up, obviously, with interviews, if there's a direction that they want to go in, we can explore that.
Okay.
But more importantly, it's who's our audience,
Yes.
And in radio especially. I have a 3-hour slot, which initially I was like, man, what am I going to do for 3 hours?
Right.
But now with everything that we do, and we're incorporating the interviews more and more, the live performances in the studio, those 3 hours go by real quick.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily want to engage in something really deep only to go, oh, I'm sorry, we're out of time.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe that's another avenue somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm drawn to, getting down to the undersurface, the underbelly.
Definitely.
Who are some of your favorite local bands, or bands that you see something in them that, we all should recognize?
There's been, and there are bands now that I think are on the verge of doing something big. We talk about the Speed Spirits. Paging Mr. Herman is still going strong, and they're reinventing themselves all the time. Kristen Warren never ceases to amaze me. Shar Good is doing great things. Sorry for those bands that I can't think of or mention to you, because they're almost like my kids.
Yeah.
It's almost here's another thing that I was dubbed the Godfather many years ago, and that's kind of ominous, right? But at the same time, I think there's a lot of truth to it. That again, when we do shows, when we're setting up the music festival, everyone's equal. Let's get the audience a bunch of different sounds and looks, because they don't know what they're going to get. So let's just kind of mix it up and see what's out there. And again, the opportunities arise for these bands to play in Brevard, to play in Orlando, to play elsewhere.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
There's a great band. Let me give this shout out. And I don't think they get the due that they deserve because they're not here all the time. That's a band. It's a three-piece band. Yeah.
Okay. It's called Jillian.
Jillian Carter.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of music do they do?
They are heavy. I don't know what the kids call it these days, but something core. I'm sure metalcore, let's say. But again, they're always on the road. They're always, traveling. They went over to France last year.
Wow.
And again, they're creating opportunities. So I think that's the big thing too. If I can instill wisdom, is you don't just sit in your garage waiting for opportunities to come or for the phone to ring. We've created opportunities here in Brevard for exposure, which I think is great. But if you're truly serious about it, we live in an age where you can book a tour on Facebook.
Yeah.
You can talk to people all over the country, all over the world, and crash on their couch. We didn't have that back in my day.
That's right.
You had to kind of just drive to the town and see who was there first.
Doing it. Yeah.
Did
you or did you not recently have an interview with Swim?
Yeah.
Because they kind of came to mind when you're speaking about that.
Sure.
They're from here, but have somehow, or they've carved their own way. They're predominantly in California now.
Correct. And it's funny because I've known those guys for many years, and finally heard the story from Chris rather, that they were doing a tour and it kind of ended in California, and they were given an opportunity at the end of the tour to either come back home or kind of put up roots there, and they chose the latter. So yeah, they're a great example of an evolution. What they sounded like when they played shows in Brevard versus what they sound like now is quite different, but it's organic. As much as that word is overused for everything, I think that's a great example of, what are we going to write today, and are we going to worry about how that compares to what we've done previously?
Yes.
And they found success.
They definitely have, yeah. Okay, so you have been in charge to some degree for this Space Coast Music Festival. You said that there was a failed attempt in 2016.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Sure. So the music festival, people might not know this, actually ran from 2010 to 2015. It was a multi-day, multi-band festival throughout the county from Sue Lulai, who moved away in 2015 or 2016. I had just happened to give her a call to find out what was going on that year. She had told me that she had basically gifted it or given her blessing to the city of Cocoa Beach, and that they were going to try to do something, and that I should speak to them. So all I did, and this has happened a couple of times in my career, all I did is basically call and say, hi, I want to know more information. And they basically had me come on and plan it, which I was not ready for. But, again, opportunities arise. So I worked with the city once a week for about 8 months to put something together. They secured funding. We were on the verge of announcing it, and things didn't go as planned, and the funding was pulled. So and the event was canceled. But that again gave me an opportunity to work with municipalities, okay, we don't have a stage. It was going to be a loading dock of a business to be our main stage. So, but I made some connections that I still have now in LA and so forth because of it. And again, it gave me the opportunity, 2 years later in 2018, sitting at my kitchen table to go, well, maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do this here instead of here.
So after it failed, did they give you this is yours now?
Yeah.
So it was up to you to revive it.
We went, exactly, yeah. The actual revival took place in 2019. There were some conversations that were done kind of after the fact. We're going to do this. Is that okay?
Yeah.
As opposed to asking for permission.
Well, so when you say funding was pulled.
Yeah.
And this is a thing that goes on for days. How many days? Is it like a long weekend?
The festival was going to be just one day.
Oh, it's a one-day thing, but the venues are scattered about the county. Is that right?
In Sue's festivals, they were.
Okay.
It was actually in one location, but that location changed in those 5 years. It was never in the same spot
Okay.
twice. Hers were 2 days.
Okay.
The revival, both in 2016 as well as what we eventually succeeded with in 2019, would be a one-day event.
Okay, and where was that?
In 2019?
Yeah.
It would be in Galley Arts District in EGAD.
Okay.
And that is a huge part of our success, was that they were able to incorporate the festival into an event that they had monthly called FleaGad. So it was like the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup of, we wanted to do a bunch of bands. They welcomed us with open arms, and we've had it there for 3 times now.
3 times now at that park with the little stage.
Well, in the band show is our main stage. To answer your question from earlier, we had 7 stages in EGAD. The one in Cocoa Beach, I think it was going to be maybe 2.
Okay, but Cocoa Beach was like, we're not doing this anymore.
No, unfortunately, that fell apart before we could move forward with it.
Okay, and then you were like, let's hook up with EGAD.
Yeah, I mean, to give credit where credit's due, Steve Spencer is my partner for getting it done. So we were able to go ahead and from my kitchen table and say, we both wanted original bands.
Yep.
The one that Sue did was a combination of original bands, cover bands, out-of-town bands. When we relaunched it in 2019, it was 68 local original bands.
68 in one day?
In one day.
Wow. Yeah. Holy cow.
In 2022, we had a Friday night pre-party, and Saturday was the festival. We had 103 bands.
What are some of the hurdles? Like, to me, which, I mean, doesn't say much because I'm not, I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to putting a festival together. What are some of the hurdles? Because, you have the contacts, all the bands locally. It's just about getting them to come and perform. It seems so easy, right? And especially if O'Galley's cool, we have a flea market here, use the space.
The hurdles would be the space, even in a perfect situation. When we did it in 2019, I was standing out on O'Galley Boulevard at 5 a.m. in the dark.
Yeah.
And basically thought to myself, this could be the coolest thing ever, or this could be the worst event, and I'll never work again in this town. And then 8 hours later, there was 4,000 people there. So however it came to be, and I get asked all the time, what's your secret? I have no idea. I wish I could tell you, positivity, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, but what can go wrong? Traffic,
parking, I would say. Parking has always been an issue. But as a promoter at that stage in the game, you can't concern yourself with that.
That reminds me of that fire documentary. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
Where they promoted this.
Oh, Firefest?
Firefest.
Yeah, no, we're not. I'm not saying that at all. Ja Rule is not included with ours. But no, I mean that is intentional fraud.
Yeah,
right. For us, it was hopefully a couple people will come, and there was 4,500 people that came the first year.
So you didn't think it would draw an audience?
I didn't think that people would stay
all day.
Right. I could see it being crowded at some times and nothing. From my band's experience, local music draws 50 people.
Okay.
We're going to promote Best Fest like it's the Super Bowl. Everyone's going to tell you that they're coming, and then 20 people show up.
Okay.
Because the car died or their cat got sick. So that day, that first music festival in 2019, I was pumped.
Yeah.
Everyone was going to come, and then they did. So that wasn't part of my mindset. Again, I was standing in O'Galley with people, literally like people walking all around me, and just me going, why are they here?
Because you put it together.
Yeah. Well, and it's definitely a group effort. The bands cooperate.
Yeah.
Right. The vendors love it because it's basically, initially it was an extended flea guide.
Mm-hmm.
The people have somewhere to go, So, I mean, it was a win-win for everybody, and it still is, but it's grown exponentially. In 2022, we had about 6,000 people.
Wow.
So at that point, from a promoting standpoint, you have to go, okay, we really need to work on this parking issue. We need to work on this. We need to work on that.
Did you do it in 2023?
We did not, actually. Scheduling was an issue. There is proposed construction in EGAD that's still pending. So those were scenarios that, again, with 6,000 plus people, it would be irresponsible from a promoting standpoint to not make sure that those issues are at least addressed.
Yeah.
Or resolved. Resolved would be perfect, but I don't see that happening.
So for 2024,
Yeah.
do we not expect it to happen?
We do. We're moving forward, but again, we're addressing those concerns earlier in the year.
Okay.
The issues from last year in 2023 were more towards the end of the year, where again the time frame and discussions that were had just weren't going to be logistically possible with that many people. Again, Firefest is, hey, let's throw it and we'll see what happens. We were past that by 2020, which we wanted to do, but we couldn't because of COVID.
Right.
That gave us some more insight of saying, okay, let's make sure that we.
But now it's like the success of it is what's hindering it, because you're going to expect this many people, and now you have more more hoops to jump, or is it the matter of just waiting for this construction to happen or not happen? I mean, they're putting on these flea ads or things anyway.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because the events that are taking place are smaller in scope. So again, we could go forward and say, hey, we'll just see what happens. Or we can say, okay, do we have something that's structurally sound? Do we have something that has, the staying power for this year and years in the future?
Yeah.
There's also, I'm the worrywart of the group. There's also hasn't been any incidents. So I don't want us to rush into something or to forego what could happen
incidents
and then have it happen. Medical incidents, traffic incidents. I mean, when at the height of it, we have police to direct traffic if necessary, but we're going over O'Galley Boulevard, right onto the causeway. So there's cars racing throughout the day, and yes, the police are there to kind of monitor that.
Okay.
But there's thousands of people that are still around, and again, we haven't had any incidents, and I'm not saying that we want to, but that is definitely a scenario. So if there's construction going on or prepping for that, those are going to all fall into place with the concerns.
What about like other venues? Have you thought of that?
We've talked about that. Again, I think part of our success has been EGAD.
Yeah.
I've always said that, the time that we'll be out of EGAD is when we can't physically be in EGAD. Well, and that might be a possibility.
They just they do the wine and food festival every year at downtown Melbourne. Is that ever an option for you? It seems like they have a lot of land there. Same kind of issues with the causeway and the parking being so close. But
for downtown, you're saying?
Yeah.
Downtown to me won't work for many reasons. The biggest one being we have so many stages.
Okay.
Right. Even in the beginning in 2016, I'll share this with you. Part of my planning would be busking. Right. If busking is when there's just a person with a guitar, no stage, no amps, no anything. So my original vision in Cocoa Beach was that yes, there'll be a stage for this band to play on. But as you're walking around the area, there'll be this person on the street corner and this person, with a violin in a coffee shop, so that music is all around you.
Yeah.
What we've created with EGAD, by hook or by crook, is that we had 7 stages. It was almost like a Warped Tour, where there are just makeshift stages that bands could play on. So it would have to be kind of a combination of that. It would have to be, scaled down to a certain extent for it to work anywhere else.
Okay.
Downtown, again, the parking, you can't park on a Tuesday, let alone on a music festival. So
Right.
for me, that's my biggest hang up is again, logistically make it feasible. And I think we work with the city and such, and they want that as well.
Okay.
They want to know
And
what we're
Coco
doing.
is completely out of the question. I mean, you brought up the Warped Tour. That worked back then.
Well, they would do it in parking lots of stadiums, right? So when we say a makeshift stage, it's because there's just a bunch of space over there. There was nothing there.
Yeah.
And now it's a stage for the day. What we're talking about in these places are city blocks.
Yeah.
And traffic and customers to their business as well.
Right.
So we never really wanted to impede on that. So yeah, I mean, never say never.
Yeah. No.
We've had discussions. I think
Push
I'm allowed to
forward.
say that. People have said, well, what about this? And I think anything's on the table, but again, I have to look at it. We have to look at it. Is it going to be sustainable? Is it going to be safe?
Yeah. Well, I wish you luck on that because
Thank
it's a big event from what I hear.
Mhm.
And then now you're doing WFIT. You have Keller Radio.
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's been a blast.
Yeah.
I've known the WFIT folks for a while. It had been discussed about doing a show, but the scheduling just never worked out. And then all of a sudden it did. And a phone call turned into 2 weeks of training, which was me sitting there with a mouse trying to figure out how to
The
do
digital
this.
stuff.
Yeah. And, the week before Thanksgiving was my first show. And it's pretty cool. There are so many great bands and there are so many friends that I have. We try to kind of space it out now.
Yeah.
So that we're not all,
All the
doing all of it in the first 3 months or so.
Right. And is it just you there, or do you have a crew of technicians and whatnot?
It's not a crew. Shout out to Brooke, who literally this is how things happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
She has a day job herself, and she wanted to learn more about radio. She sent a message. I answered it, and now she's been on the show the last 5 weeks, I think. Not an intern necessarily, but just an apprentice maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
And wants to learn. And, she helps out with the playlist. She helps out with the guests because the guests have become, an every week thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, how did you do this? Well, they asked.
Yep.
And more importantly, the opportunity was given and she stepped up.
Yeah. That's how it happens.
Absolutely.
Right?
Ideally.
Yeah. How do you feel about radio in general? I mean, to us who like grew up in it, it's warming in a way, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same as it ever was, if that makes sense.
Is it? It's not dying or anything.
No. I think it's harder to seek out,
Mm-hmm.
Even when I do these interviews with, we had a speech from Arrested Development. I just interviewed Nuno Betancourt from Extreme, which was a big deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
So now their handlers, the publicity people go, what podcast is this for? So it's kind of flipped, right? It's no longer the podcast of, which radio station is this for? It's kind of flipped to the other side. But WFIT is 49 years old.
Yeah.
People have grown up in this town listening to it. I listen to it all the time, and it's not just because I'm on there now. So, like I said, it's a little bit harder to find, perhaps, but it's still genuine.
Yeah, totally.
National Public Radio.
Do you guys do video?
We have the ability to do it. Paging Mr. Herman came into the studio, and they brought their own 360 camera.
Wow.
So, I mean, props to WFIT management for giving me the opportunity to do stuff like this. They haven't told me no yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully they won't. But yeah, I mean, it's just another opportunity to do some cool stuff with local bands and to blast it out into the planet for people to look at, Yes.
We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And you be the godfather of the local scene. do you have any nominations that you can think of that you would want to see here on Local Celebrity?
You know, one of my favorite people, and I apologize if he's already been a guest, I don't think he has, is Pete Spoth.
Okay.
Pete is the guy that does it, and does it with a smile, and is out there writing, you know, musicals with Hot Pink and DJing and playing birthday parties and just hustling, and is a musician in his own right. So I think he'd be a great guest.
Cool. Well, we'll reach out to him. One more thing. You are the VP at Harbor City Local. It's a nonprofit that supports original music.
Correct. That's the main sponsor of the music festival. So Steve Spencer and I, when we got together, he was in the process of putting the charity together.
Okay.
The money, people may not know this, the money that we raise then from the music festival goes to Harbor City Local, which then buys musical instruments that are donated to local schools.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the violins that people get to play in the 6th grade? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, if there's a family out there that needs financial assistance or qualifies, you know, for themselves personally, or that we deliver it to the school. That was Sue's main mission as well. Sue raised over $100,000 those 5 years.
Wow.
For instruments that are donated to the school, and then they sign them out basically for the semester.
Right. Yeah.
So we've tried to keep that tradition alive. We do scholarships for private lessons.
Oh, really?
So if a kid's not able to join the band or orchestra,
that's super cool.
then we help out with that.
Awesome. Wow. Any parting words?
Just thanks for having not only me, but thanks for the interest in the scene.
Absolutely.
You know, we've talked about music a lot, but there's a lot of creative content people out there, artists, people who paint murals. I mean, I've always looked at it, dancers, I've always looked at it as, you know, we're all together in this. The music is one aspect of it, but I'd love to see, you know, that interest across the board.
Just the arts in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you on that one.
Cool.
Steve, thank you so much for being here and educating us and talking to us about music and more.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you.
To be a sponsor or nominate a guest, hit us up on Instagram at local_celebrity_Brevard. Until next time, goodbye.